Hello everyone, this is Bradley. I'm busy and I suppose I will be kept busy till the end of year, but I'm still trying to do things which are meaningful. With this new release of my preset library version 2.1, I hope in the future more live noding will come out. One thing that I have to mention is that if the title of any of my animation or demonstration contains noding products, it means I must have a recording whether or not it has been published already. If I haven't published that for whatever reason, just leave a message to my Facebook or messengers through the Facebook, whose link is provided in the description, and I will respond to that as soon as possible, because it's kind of very unfortunate that I postponed uploading of some of my live noding for so long. This video about preset library release is going to talk about several important decisions made in this preset library, and some ways of fixing bugs in the library or potentially your future node tree. So firstly, let's talk about the journey that takes you from the version 1.2 to 2.0. The version number is a joke. You don't necessarily take it seriously. In fact, this entire preset library is for my own use. It was not even supposed to be published or shared or whatever. But I published in case you're interested in live noding. Otherwise, it's completely bullshit, right? Anyway, although I said that the version number is a joke, but it's still a huge jump for some reason, and I will discuss more about that just in a second. So let's start. So here's the library 1.2. And what I want to, by any chances, if you have downloaded that version in the past, and you probably find from some point of time there is a red bar errors that comes out. And if you try to use this library for whatever things, for example, I don't even know what kind of node I have. So for example, let's take a node wave generator and just try to take a 3D viewer. And let's try to distribute matrices. Kind of put the vectors into. And you can see there's nothing shows up with the 3D viewer. It's just nothing. Actually, this node tree is not even working. Actually, because if I change the numbers, you can see the execution time is not running. It means this node tree is not working. So basically what I want to say is every time if you find these red bars, it means your node tree is not working. If you hit N, and it will open up the right panel, and you will look at if you go to the node tree, then you will find there is a problem, and you will ask there is at least one undefined node. This happens when you open blah 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 whatever etc. But it's just it means your node tree is dead. But actually, I just realized actually the contains a very interesting thing. It tells you that the sort is undefined. So you just go through sort, and you didn't find that. Where's my sort? The sort number is actually from the node of get minimum and maximum. And you will find that there's a node which is undefined. And you basically just delete that node, and immediately the problem will be solved. And if we go to node tree again, you can see our node tree start to work again. And the 3D viewer is showing the points from whatever things. Okay, this is kind of very cool. So this is one way of solving the problem, and I try to explain a little bit about why this error comes. Many people ask the question that, oh, I tried both the Blender 2.83 and the Blender 2.9. None of them works. Why is that? The reason is not because of the version of your Blender. The issue is actually about the version of your animation node. So we are in animationnodes.com. This is one of the most official websites you can find about animation nodes, because it is made by the developer of animation nodes. That's why I turned that official, but there are so many people who are making statements about animation nodes in this community, so it does not really matter whether it's official or not. But I want to say is that it's just it posts the things that developer wants you to know. Okay, so in this website, what you can see is Firstly, you see a show reel about what kind of animation that animation node can do, but it's kind of very outdated. It's 2017. It's too late. And if you scroll down, and you can see different types of download. Depends on your operating system: Linux, Apple Mac, and Microsoft Windows. And what you can see here is you can see there is a latest version and version 2.1 for Blender 2.83 LTS. And it even gives a statement about explaining all this kind of things. So I don't want to talk about all this bullshit. So originally what I was thinking is I'm going to make a preset library for version 2.1 and another version for the latest, which means version 2.2. But later I realized it's just not good to keep the version 2.1 for Blender 2.83 because there are many new nodes that comes out with the latest version. For example, Radio 4 node that I proposed, and there are lots of amazing features that you can get in the new version, but not the old version. So I don't know how many people will actually stay in Blender 2.83. Personally, I cannot imagine that. In fact, although I know there are some people who are still staying in Blender 2.79 for whatever reasons, but I'm not going to do that. So I just published the latest version. It does not necessarily mean the latest version, which is currently for Blender 2.9, will actually break sometime for Blender 2.83. Like for a very long time, I'm still using the latest version of animation nodes in Blender 2.83, and I have no problem. But sometimes it's just I don't know what kind of problem you have. What I want to say with this example is that my preset library is supposed to not having red bar because I use this preset library regardless whether you think it's useful or not. I use this library. I post the things that I'm using. Okay. So if you have a red bar, it means something abnormal. And it must be a more kind of systematic error about animation node itself instead of my preset library. If you find a red bar, it's just keep a notion about keep in mind about how the animation nodes version has been changed instead of Blender itself. So this is kind of idea. And then here we are in preset library 2.0. So if I go to the animation nodes, you can see the node tree has no red bar because I fixed that basic stupid errors due to the animation nodes version. And if I go to but if I try to use a node, there's a what's that called? Waving spline. And let's take a look with our 3D viewer and just set the iteration to 1. So waving spline node, if you have looked at many of my tutorials, I use that pretty frequently. It's basically just to wave the spline as it has been stated with its name. And if I change the with the noise amplitude, you can see there is nothing changes. What the heck is happening? So this is one of the errors that I found recently when I was working in my project. But I didn't update my preset library versions for public use. I've updated by myself. What I want to say is that there are lots of small bug fixation that I don't constantly update on Gumroad. Firstly, it's kind of stupid if I basically send you emails on Gumroad every day about, oh, I made a change, this, and that. It's very kind of dumb. Another thing is that sometimes I made some changes, but I don't know if I'm correct. In the past, there was a minimum and a maximum loop, and I think it's kind of not very useful to keep the two version of that. And the reason I keep the two version, one is loop and one is list, has been explained in my preset basics tutorial. I don't want to explain that further. But I used to combine these two nodes together. But later I found out it will make the entire interface very bad. So after I deleted this minimum maximum list, I realized it's not the way I should go. So I have to redo everything again to construct the minimum and the maximum list and change the minimum maximum loop back to the original state. So instead of making you, the users from the general public, being confused about the tiny change every time I'm updating my preset library. So I suppose I will less frequently update on Gumroad, but more frequently change things on my side. But anyway, at least this node is broken for whatever reasons. So this is my fault. But I don't actually know why sometimes it breaks, maybe because of some changes or whatever. It's also not possible to actually proofread all this kind of node tree before I send to the general public, because there's just so many nodes, and some of them they should only be used in a specific condition, and so on and so forth. So I'd rather just try to see whether there's an error while I'm using them. So what I want to say in this case is that if by any chances you found that there is a node which is broken, which is not a function as expected, or there is a node that you don't understand how to use them, just send me a message on Facebook or messengers, and the link is provided in the description. Recently there was kind of very unfortunate case that there was a person who contacted me on Thursday, but I'm having call shift basically on Thursday, Friday, whatever stuff. So I realized that very late, about Saturday, I responded to him and he no longer responded to me. I feel very sorry about all these kind of things, but I'm kind of very busy these days. But I'll try to do these kind of things as soon as possible if it's kind of a major thing or other things. I don't know. But in the meantime, if you have a issue of the preset library, you may fix that by yourself, and that's why I'm making this tutorial as well. So now I have a non-functional waving spline. It's supposed to wave, but it's not functional. So what you can do? So firstly, the first question that I want you to realize is that you do not know whether these waving splines comes from the preset 1 and the preset 2, or tracer, or whatever other places. What you can do is you select this subprogram, and you just hit tab, and it will bring you to the preset library that it has been generated. And then you just Control F and type waving spline. Then you go to the frame which has the name of waving spline, and you find our waving spline. And by just looking at that, it does not seem to have any issues. You don't necessarily really understand how this node tree actually works. But what you need to realize, what you just need to check is whether the linkage is intact or not. For example, there is a linkage to here, and that's kind of nice. And it seems to have no problem to me. So next step is to find if there is any issue within the subprograms, or sometimes you can just use the 3D viewer to take a look whether it has issue or not. But the one thing be aware is that sometimes I'm not activating the auto execution of this preset library so that I can save more energy for my computer. So if you're trying to do proofreading within this preset library, you probably would like to turn on this auto execution. And basically, during the proofreading procedure, what I actually realized is that if I have this Perlin vector noise node, and I type Perlin vector noise, and I go to this node, I realize there's some broke linkage that happens. I don't know why it happens. I honestly have no idea. But once you link them together, everything has been fixed. So now we have a very nice waving spline. And you just increase the noise amplitude, it starts wave. And you can increase the offset, it will start wave. And definitely you can start to play with this node for lightning generation or whatever other stuff. But this is kind of idea. Very kind of cool. And just by roughly looking at that this entire tree, you do realize that there are sometimes some issues with this node tree as well. The vertex transition loop, and then there is a broken subprogram. For this kind of problem, if you don't know how to fix that, just send me messages. Just send me messages. I will try to look for that. In fact, but it's kind of, I don't expect you to really know how to fix these issues, of course. So send me messages. It's the most efficient way if you have some issue with all these kind of bugs. And these subprograms as well. Sometimes it's just whatever. So this is about the 2.0. I basically fixed all these kind of bugs that I realized later. So yeah, basically this is it. And let's go to the version 2.1, which has been newly released in preset library. So here we are on the file that I sold on Gumroad for $1. This is the rocket trace animation. And in the past, I was making this without a preset, so the node tree is extremely huge with many nodes, very chaotic. But later, I updated that with the preset library, so the node tree becomes as short as possible, like this. Okay. I don't know if it can be shorter with more preset, but I think this is good enough. Good and simple. However, the issue that you need to think about is that because I updated this version with the preset library 1.2, which means you're going to have this red bar, and this error is due to the same problem that I've discussed earlier. So I'm going to use the same way to fix that. Just go to the presets, get minimum and maximum. Where's my, yes, it's here. And just look at this red node, you can just delete that. By the way, if you are ever curious about what this node is, it's just a short number. You can see it's actually the same. I think maybe there's a change in the codings behind the scene, so that this node is not recognized and causing errors. But I have no idea what actually happens. You just put all these kind of number together, it will fix, and you will get this node back on track. But we're not using these presets in our rocket trace animation anyway, so probably you don't necessarily care about that. Anyway, so this is it. So now if I try to scroll the timelines, we have this animation back to life again, and you can open up the shader and you can see how that actually looks. Okay, this is kind of idea. Another thing I would like to mention, next thing I would like to discuss is because this preset library is outdated, so sometimes maybe you want to update that to the newest version so that new presets can be used for your project if you're going to use this node tree. So how can you append the node tree or update the preset library or other things? I think I have discussed this in the past, but I'm going to discuss this again. So what you need to do is go to the preset and just remove this entire node tree. So now you're going to have the red bar. The reason is that our preset essentially is a subprogram which has been built elsewhere. And if you delete the mother trees, this subprogram is not recognizing itself. So it's undefined. It does not know what to do. Like, where is the spline socket? It's just it lost its mother. It's very sad and it causes errors. Okay, so we need to get all these subprograms back to alive. And to do that, we need to append the presets back to our node tree stack. So what you do is just go to the file and goes to do append. And it goes to the file, and I have, let's turn back. Let's go to the 2.1. Yes. So now I have the appending file 2.1, which will be published soon. Or you can go to the start of a file. It actually does not really change. Actually, I'm going to delete this. It does not really change a thing because my expectation didn't work. And then you go to the node tree. Remember, this node tree will contain the node tree for animation nodes, for swirl chalk, also the group nodes of your shader. Okay, they're all shared within this node tree group. So sometimes you have to get a proper naming so that you can recognize which node tree or which group node is which. So I recognize my preset, and you just append this preset. And now I have this subprogram retain or get back its color. And also this subprogram get back to its color, which means they are alive. But I'm still having this red bar because I know that I don't have any issues or other things. So you just take a retry. Try to solve all the problems by itself. The retry only works when you really don't have a problem or you no longer have a problem. So the problem must come from what's happened earlier, and your animation nodes didn't solve that immediately after. So you just retry that to ask animation nodes, can you try that again to solve the problem, because I think the problem is solved. And the animation node will respond to you, oh, I realized the bug is fixed, so I will delete the bug report. Something like that. Anyway, I don't know what I'm talking about. I'm so tired. So now everything has been fixed, and your animation, however, will actually not work. And if you try to scroll, it does not work. Why? Why it's not working as it was before? Does it mean that my preset library is broken? Actually, the issue is no. The reason is that this actually comes to be a kind of very complicated issues. If you go to the scene, you realize originally there was only scene, but it finally comes with the scene 001. And there is nothing inside, because this is actually appended from the file for the preset. So this is kind of a very complicated thing. What I want to say is that the animation node is linked to the scene. So if you go to node tree, goes to animation node tree, and you will see the scene is linked to scene 001. So the time frame it's working on is the scene 001. So what you need to do is basically just you either change this thing back to the scene, but since you have nothing here and it's just appended for whatever dumb reason, you just delete that. So now it will automatically link back to the original scene. And now everything will be fixed. So now we have our animation back to life with the good time frame. So this is basically the idea. However, another thing I want to mention is that, do I recommend you to update your preset library using the methods for the project file that I uploaded in the past? The answer is no, I do not recommend to do so. The reason is that I constantly make all these kind of changes, and there's some node in this preset library will just be gone for whatever reason. Maybe tomorrow I think this time info series preset is not useful to me, so I will delete this completely. And then if you try to append the new version of preset library, then you will have a broken node tree because this time info series node is no longer exists. And then you have a non-recognized invoke subprogram node. In fact, you do realize the fact that earlier that when we were in version 2.0, there is a lot of node there is a lot of broken linkage, which is because I deleted the old nodes, updated them, and do whatever stuff. Which means if you try to update your preset library, sometimes it may broke. And I'm not 100% sure whether it will broke or not, because I don't even remember every change that I made for myself. But this is kind of idea. By any chances, if you have any issues, just send me a message on Facebook. I will try to respond that as soon as possible. And this is it. So here we are in the startup file of preset library 2.1. So this is the newest version in this release. Basically, it doesn't feel like many things have been changed, but I want to remind you there's a lot of node that has been deleted, lots of new node has been added. Like there is a node, I think there's a called a remap for noise. It's kind of it's made for a very stupid reason. It don't necessarily take care of this, but this is so stupid. Some stupid things is like the negative node that I made for myself. It's still under testing. I mean, functionally speaking, it's kind of nice, but I'm just not sure whether this preset is really useful or not. There's also many other nodes, but one very important thing is there is a new node which is called a combine node. Where's my combine node? Yes, or it's called combine object. Yes, okay, it's combine object. I'm going to discuss this very soon. I think, because I think this is a very interesting node. Although I'm not sure whether it will be useful to you or not. But anyway, what I want to basically say is that the future perspective on this channel is I try to do a lot of live noding because I don't have time to make tutorials. But if by any chances I'm making tutorials, I think I'm more focused on introducing about all these presets. Although the intention of making all these presets is for my own use, it's not supposed to be published and shared to the general public. But because my live noding relies so much on the preset that I made for myself, it affects my workflow so much. I use them so frequently, so I'm sharing all this the preset library. So I also want you to know how it has been changed, because there's really very interesting and amazing changes with the preset library and animation nodes, so that the entire preset library becomes better and better and more interesting. So I want you to understand some of these presets and hope they will help your workflow by any chances if you're using them or do whatever things. And that's why I think I'm going to make a lot of tutorials talking about all these kind of presets. You can treat them as basically the native nodes from the animation nodes, like the, what's that called? Spline form points and the smooth bezel splines. You can treat them as well as just a normal node that you frequently use. So you don't necessarily think them specifically as the presets, because to me they feel kind of not very different. Only the color matters. But sometimes this is it. So what I want to say is I hope the usage of preset will benefit you, and you will use them as easily as you're breathing the air. Okay. So this is the expectation on this channel, but I'm not sure what I'm going to really do, and maybe I don't have time for any of those, but I will try. Okay. So I hope you enjoyed this tutorial or this announcement, and I'll probably see you next time. Bye bye.